Hello, I'm Bobby Savoie, AARP Louisiana State President. I'm an AARP volunteer, but I'm also the volunteer lead for both the Speakers Bureau and the Fraud Watch Network for the Louisiana State Office. Today, I'm joined by Amanda Gallina, who is a Community Engagement Manager for the St. Bernard Project. Amanda, thank you for joining me today, and I'd like for you to tell us a little bit about SBP and what you guys do there.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Bobby. It's great to be with you today. SVP is a national nonprofit with the mission to shrink the time between disaster and recovery. We were founded in 2006 after Hurricane Katrina, so our 15-year anniversary of that is actually coming up this weekend. And it was founded in St. Bernard Parish, Louisiana. We've already built over 1,600 homes across the nation, helping families that were impacted by disasters. Our team is actually made up of AmeriCorps members, staff, and we also manage volunteers. So that's how we're able to respond to disasters. Beyond rebuilding, though, we actually have 4 other interventions that I'd love to just mention, and they are share, prepare, advise, and advocate. And so, we used to really focus on coming in and helping folks rebuild, but we know that there are so many other best practices that actually sort of meet our mission of shrinking the time between disaster and recovery.
My experience after both Katrina and Rita was I managed the environmental public health response for Louisiana Office of Public Health, and I certainly understand how it is to go through a disaster and basically the rebuilding process and all the hoops that folks have to jump through to get to sometimes not even back to where they were, but some kind of a semblance of normalcy.
Exactly.
So again, we're in the peak of hurricane season. In fact, the Atlantic Basin is very active with both Hurricanes Laura and Marco. And so why do you think it's so important for us to prepare in advance of a hurricane?
Yeah. Well, through our work, we've learned a lot of lessons from clients. And so these are the people that have gone through it, come out the other side, and they've said, I wish I had done things differently. And so SVP has sort of collectively taken those lessons and put them into these best practices. So not only have these homeowners gone through destruction of property and their home, but they're also experiencing, like you mentioned, those delayed services and lack of predictability. And at SVP, we truly believe that the best way to shrink the time between disaster and recovery is to reduce the need for the recovery in the first place. So that's really all that preparedness. If we can make the community more resilient, and it doesn't take much. In fact, what we can talk about today is just some quick actions. We know that those steps are the missing components that our clients said they didn't do and they wish they did.
Yeah, and unless you've been through one of these things, sometimes it's hard to know. And taking advice and suggestions from folks that have been through it helps the rest of us in the event that we have to go through it. And so we know that SBP has some recommendations that we should be taking now in order to be prepared for Hurricane Laura, and probably should have taken in preparation for Hurricane Marco, but fortunately we dodged that bullet. So if we can talk a little about some of those recommendations, and the one that comes up, I guess, highest on the list is to make an evacuation plan and plan to leave early if that's something that needs to be done.
Yes, absolutely, Bobby. First and foremost, your safety is the most important. And so we want to ensure that you have gas, cash, and emergency supplies readily available. And so it is totally your decision whether to evacuate or to not. But here are sort of our guidelines in both situations. If you are going to shelter in place, we recommend that you have 1 to 2 weeks of supplies. And if you're planning to evacuate, we recommend that you have at least 3 days of supplies. In the past, our clients sort of said that when it comes to supplies, they knew some of the main to-go-to ingredients, batteries, water, etc. But the pieces they would always miss are extra medicine, so prescriptions you might need if you are on the road and not able to get them, or not able to get them filled because your area is flooded. Fun items for children if you're sheltering in place or even on the road with kids. You want to make it comfortable for them. And sometimes people are like, yeah, we absolutely did not have that. That was hard to keep them occupied. And even supplies for pets, so dog food, cat food, etc. If you're not able to get that, you don't want to have to necessarily share your supplies with them. We actually have an amazing home resource guide at sbpprotects.org that has a very full list of what you might want to get. And so whether you shelter in place or evacuate, you can absolutely have the right supplies.
Okay, so I understand about the supplies, having what you might need, whether you're at home or you're away. And one thing before I ask the question, prior to Katrina and Rita, our best thinking at the time was 2 or 3 day supplies in the event that you're stranded or you're at home. And I think since Katrina and Rita is that, maybe it's not a 2 day and done and return home. Now Katrina, Rita was weeks. The 2016 flood in South Central Louisiana was weeks and months. And so having that stuff available, handy, and able to get to. And so gas and cash. What's the deal?
Yeah, you want to make sure that you're never in a position where you're waiting in line excessively or you're actually not able to get a resource. And so that's definitely what my dad would always tell me is you have to be fueled up and ready to go. And you might have the same idea as everybody right now if we're going out and doing it, but it will honestly make such a difference if you were to need to evacuate. And of course, the cash comes into play if we're not able to use our credit cards and the power is down. And even we recommend that if perhaps you were to evacuate, you might not be able to pay with card at a hotel. So the type of cash you might want to bring is something that would allow you to stay a night or 2 nights at a hotel.
Right. And in normal times we can, walk into the corner grocery or the neighborhood Walmart or wherever it is, in and out in a few minutes. Well, when there's a disaster or an event like that, maybe there's no power. Maybe you can't even get in. And if you can get in, maybe you gotta wait in line. And of course, in this time of COVID-19, the lines are growing long, even in preparation, not only after the event. So one of the things that I've heard is that it's important maybe to take videos inside, outside, around the house in the event that there's a flood or a fire or a total loss. And so why is that a good idea, I guess, is what the question is.
Yeah, and actually this is like the easiest tip we have because it should take 5 minutes or under. And so if you're going to take a quick action, go ahead and knock this one out. The idea here is that you would sort of scan in your room by room, sort of going around with that phone or however you choose to document, and sort of lift up things that have serial numbers and sort of have them captured, because this detailed video could come into play if you have damage and you go to file an insurance claim. And it's just going to unlock sort of the best possible benefits you have because you have that record. A lot of our clients said that wasn't something they thought to do, and then it became very messy sort of trying to describe what that product was, how long they had it for. And so we really recommend if you are going to take this video that then you sort of send it off somewhere. You can send it to the cloud, you can send it to a family or a friend, so that if something were even to happen to your phone, you still have that video.
So, in the old days, we used to have a phone on the wall or a phone by the bed. And the few people that we knew that also had phones, we could remember their phone numbers. And so our phones are mini computers, and we don't remember. I mean, sometimes I don't even remember what my phone number is. Yeah. And so do you think it's important that maybe we write some of those important numbers down so that, we don't have to depend on the electronics? And why is that a good idea?
Bobby, you're so right. I do know my phone number, but I know a very limited other number of contacts. I know my, parents' home number, but that's really about it. And so you're right. We've lost sort of that skill and that knowledge of just people's numbers. And ultimately what we know will happen is you might be in a situation or circumstance where you are not able to charge your phone. And we don't know how long that might be for. And if you're not able to do that, then you wouldn't have access to that rich contact list that you have. And we want loved ones to know that we're safe or that we're coming to them. And so if you have it written down, just put it on in your wallet. It doesn't have to be everybody in your phone book, the top 10 or 5 folks that you think you would be in contact with during or after a disaster. And that will just save you a lot of heartache of trying to figure out a way to charge that phone, or potentially your phone got damaged, and even if you found a charger, it wouldn't work.
Or no power, right? And
Exactly.
like you said, it doesn't have to be your whole list of 250 phone numbers.
Right.
If you got the 5 or 10 important folks, that could be part of your phone tree, at least to let folks
Yeah.
know that that you're safe and where you are and any important information. I know that we have many more pieces of information, both SBP and AARP, and
Mm-hmm.
we'll provide that information,
Mm-hmm.
before we end the video, so that folks, if they want more information,
Mm-hmm.
looking for more information, they can go to the website. So
Yes, absolutely.
uh, these are great suggestions and great recommendations, and important in order that we can be properly prepared. Just great helpful tips in planning and preparation. So, Amanda, it's been great talking with you. It's unfortunate that we had to do it in this time of pre-crisis. And again, if someone has questions for you or the SVP, how can they get in touch with you?
Sure, absolutely. So my contact information is listed. You can get in touch with me at agallina@sbpusa.org, and my telephone number is there. But what I'd really encourage folks to do in this, next window of time is to go into sbpprotects.org, where you can look up all these great resources and download home guides, potentially even print them off. And what they're going to do is go beyond just those quick action items and into sort of detailed preparation and potentially recovery. So that's the other aspect here. If something were to happen, we have resources on how to file those insurance claims, etc. Before I leave you, Bobby, I want to make sure people know that they should protect their documents, meaning sometimes they're all over the house. So I wake up in the middle of the night, I wonder where my birth certificate is, keeps me up. Gather them all in one place, make sure that they're in a water-sealed container. I also think people should get out and protect their home, meaning clear any debris that might get in the way, put the outside furniture into the garage, that sort of thing. But these truly will keep folks from reaching their breaking point when and if you're, having a flood situation or the power is out. But I really, really appreciate you letting me talk to Bobby today, and I'm very hopeful that everybody makes this through this just fine.
Yes, and you're right about the documents. That was not necessarily one of the things that I left out of my package when I evacuated for the 2016 flood, but it's very helpful when you start to apply to whatever emergency response agencies that might have resources available. You need a lot of that kind of information. It just makes it a lot easier, and it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't delay the process.
Absolutely.
The last thing, Amanda, if there's any other final words that you'd like to give to our viewers, now would be the time.
Okay. Like I said, it's almost been 15 years since Hurricane Katrina. And while there are things that SVP knows that we can do to sort of protect ourselves, the biggest thing that you can do to protect yourself is to actually buy flood insurance. So the way flood insurance works is it would take 30 days to sort of take effect or kick in after you purchase it. So in a situation like this, it's not going to protect us from Laura, but that doesn't mean that it's not something to consider. We know that hurricane season goes all the way until the end of November. And we also know that each hurricane season seems to get a little bit worse and a little bit crazier. And so flood insurance can actually be very reasonable. If you do not live in a flood zone, it's really only about $450 a year. And if you do live in a flood zone, it's about $800 a year. But what we're seeing in Houston and Florida is that the people that are flooding are not in flood zones. So this is 80% of the flooded homes were outside of that mandated flood insurance area. So people don't have flood insurance, which means, an inch of water is going to be $27,000 worth of damage. So that's just sort of that financial strain component. We want you to be safe. We want you to weather the storm comfortably. We want you to be prepared. But if something were to happen, that is the best way to protect yourself.
Flood insurance is just an important piece of advice to give folks. And the subdivision that I lived in, of course, none of us were in a flood zone,
Mm-hmm.
but every house in this subdivision flooded, and
Mm-hmm.
the majority of people did not have flood insurance.
Mm.
And the folks that I know that did not have flood insurance, that have $500,000 houses, they might have gotten between $30,000 and $40,000 from FEMA, and the rest, yeah, it's a low interest loan, but it's a loan you got to pay back. And so, some folks might say, "Oh, flood insurance is just another thing." Well, if you have a loss, you'll be happy to have purchased that flood insurance.
Absolutely, Bobby. Absolutely.
Thank you for bringing that piece up, Amanda. So let me say, on behalf of AARP Louisiana, I want to thank you for joining us today to give these helpful tips and great suggestions and contact information. And so folks that want to follow up, they can contact you. I feel pretty certain that we'll have a link to your website on our website. So, to take advantage what AARP does. For one, we do for all. It's not just about our members, it's the age 50 plus. And if you have a computer or a smartphone or a telephone, you can call and access the information that we have available. So to our viewers, I want to encourage you to stay safe, and it's not too late to begin your preparations. You probably should be ending them now, because tomorrow is going to be a tough day. You also need to listen to your local government officials for announcements regarding any updates or important information concerning Hurricane Laura. And for more tips on being properly prepared, you can go to our website at aarp.org/Louisiana. And of course, in this time of hurricanes and COVID-19, we want you to stay safe and stay healthy. Louisiana, don't forget to wear your mask, wash your hands often, keep your distance. On behalf of AARP Louisiana and the St. Bernard Project, thank you for joining us, and goodbye.